Key groups within the House Republican Conference reached a tentative agreement last night to keep the government funded through October 31st. The deal, which was made between the far-right House Freedom Caucus and the center-right Main Street Caucus, includes a funding bill for the Department of Defense, as well as a wish list of conservative demands, multiple GOP sources with knowledge of the agreement said. That includes pairing the bill with GOP-led immigration legislation from earlier this year that severely restricts access to asylum and include calls to finish the wall at the southern border. The Republican deal also calls for an 8% cut to domestic spending, with exceptions for military and veteran funding. However, there is no mention in the bill at all of aid for Ukraine or disaster relief, which have been sticking points for both parties as well as the White House. While the bill still may pass the House this week, it is all but certain to die in the Democratic-led Senate, which still leaves Congress without a permanent government funding solution. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy had this to say regarding his conference yesterday.
Unfortunately, I had a handful of members last week that literally the Republicans stopped the Department of Defense appropriations from coming forward. And so I'm trying to get that to move forward, to make sure that the Republicans aren't stopping us from being able to get our work done.
Joining us now, co-founder of Punchbowl News, Anna Palmer. She is an MSNBC contributor. Anna, great to see you this morning. So talk to us a little bit more about this deal, how it was reached, what's in it. But doesn't it also fly in the face of the spending agreement reached by McCarthy in the White House earlier this year?
Yeah, the devil's always in the details here, and we have been seeing the negotiations between the conservative faction of House Republicans and the more moderate Main Street Republicans going back and forth, trading paper, because of the fact that Speaker Kevin McCarthy and his plans basically were stymied last week by the more conservative members of his conference. I think the big thing to think about here, though, is the fact that we are 13 days away from a government shutdown. Even if this bill, this compromise bill that you kind of laid out, actually passes the House, which is a huge if, Kevin McCarthy is going to have a very difficult time getting the votes. There's a bunch of members of his conference who've already said that they don't like this deal. There's a lot of members of the Freedom Caucus that have said they don't want to pass a short-term spending bill. So even if he's successful there, this is a non-starter in the Senate. And so the big question is, are House Republicans just kind of wasting time here? And are we just going to hurtle into a government shutdown at this point?
Yeah, certainly the betting odds would suggest that we might, because as you say, the House is no sure thing to pass this, but it's almost definitely not going to get through the Senate. So where does that stand right now? Like, talk to us about where the GOP leadership in the Senate, McConnell and his team, how are they viewing this? What are they looking to do to keep the government lights open, which McConnell keeps saying he wants?
It's such a different dynamic than we saw in the debt limit deal, right? Where you had Senate Republicans really taking a step back and allowing Kevin McCarthy to be that key negotiator with the White House and lead on these negotiations. Right now, you have Senate Republicans much more closely aligned with Democrats in the Senate and the White House, particularly when it comes to Ukraine aid. Of course, we have the Ukraine president coming to the Capitol, speaking with both Senate Republicans and Democrats. Unclear exactly who Zelensky is going to be speaking to on the House side. But there's a real divide here. And so far, we have not seen McConnell come to McCarthy's aid at all. I don't know how actually even helpful McConnell could be at this point, because clearly the more conservative part of the Republican conference in the House isn't looking to McConnell rather to solve their problems. I think the biggest issue for McCarthy, and you saw him get really frustrated last week, is the fact that he has such a slim majority, and those Republicans on the right are really holding the rest of the government funding hostage at this point.
There are not many days left on that legislative calendar we just showed to strike a deal. We're going to be speaking to you again real soon, I'm certain of it. Anna Palmer, co-founder of Punchbowl News, and we'll be looking for the Punchbowl newsletter in our inboxes shortly. Thank you, Anna.